thank you very much for inviting me. Before we start, I understand there is about 300 of you here in the room, 300 students. I would like those whom I gave a stick to stand up, please. So I'm not going to count now. We made it, your teacher made it very easy for me by giving these little sticks, so I didn't have to waste time of picking people now. I want to just give you an idea. If this room represents all the Jewish children of Nazi-occupied Europe, then the ones who are standing here, including me, are the only ones who stayed alive after the Second World War. The rest of you are dead. I just wanted you to understand it, what chances you had during the Second World War if you were a Jewish child. Please sit down, okay? I thank you very much, I appreciate it. How did I select them? You saw that some of you asked, can I have one? And I said, no, you don't. And I am sorry about it. How I selected them? I selected, first of all, mostly girls. Why? Because the boys were circumcised. And nobody wanted to hide them. The children only had a chance if they were hidden. That was, in the concentration camps, they didn't stand any chance. Most of them immediately under 16 had to go to the gas chamber. They were sent to the gas chamber. So upon arrival. So the hidden children are the only ones who really had a chance. Nobody wanted to hide the boys. I selected very few boys because very few boys survived. The girls, I selected the stronger ones. It not always works that way, but one can assume that if they are stronger and taller, they can steal the food from the others. So that's how it was selected. The strongest, whatever I saw and judged as stronger, that's the one I gave a stick to. So now you understand how much chance we had. So you are talking to one of the 10%. I mean, you are looking at me. I am one of the 10% who survived. And thank you very much. I appreciated your cooperation. I come from Hungary. Hungarian governor Horthy already always bragged that Hungary was the first fascist country. It's true, it had anti-Semitic laws before Hitler. Hitler was still painting ceilings, and he was a painter originally before he became the Chancellor of Germany. He was still a nobody, and when Mussolini didn't come to power in Italy, when Hungary already had modern Jewish laws. One of the most significant Jewish law was that only a certain number of Jews could go to college and get upper education. That was called the numerus clausus. That was the Latin name of it, and so on. Hungary, also, I know you are familiar with it. I'm very, very grateful to your teacher that called your attention to it. Hungary in First World War, first of all, went into First World War with Austria. And the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Germany were against the Americans and the British in First World War. They lost the war, and in a peace treaty in Versailles, they got the judgment, what will happen to them. I came to the conclusion, and it took me a long time to admit this, that Hungary got one of the worst peace treaty ever in history, and most unfair one. It lost half of its territory, and I know that your slide was showing it, so you can, half of its territory and 3/5 of its population. They were very unhappy about it. They have a language that's different than all the other languages, Slav languages. They only relatives to the Finnish language, Hungarian language group. They were always isolated there in Central Europe, or you may call it Eastern Europe, but the Hungarians don't ever tell a Hungarian. They think they live in Central Europe. It's very important for them. So, in any case, it was a terrible loss to this day, because the culture is lost, and when a culture is lost and the language is lost, it's a loss for everybody, even if you are not Hungarian. So I think the Hungarians were extremely unhappy about this loss. When it came in Second World War, and Hitler offered to Hungary that if they join him, and they are on his side in Second World War, he gives back all the territory. Hungary went along. And I kind of understand. At that point, they would have joined the devil if he gives them those territories. Because imagine if suddenly New England went to Canada. You know, New England, where America, you know, the birthplace of the United States, and now suddenly in some kind of peace treaty, it belonged to Canada. I think you can understand people will be very, very unhappy about it. This is what happened in Hungary too. So now let's see the situation of the Jews. True that there were these numerous clauses, law, and they couldn't go to college, etc., was bad enough, but still large businesses were all owned by Jews. Or not, large businesses were owned by Jews. The biggest steel mill in Hungary was still in Jewish hands. A Jewish family, Weiss, they owned it. Textile factories, large textile factories were all owned by Jews. So the Jews didn't have it so badly at all. My father was a bicycle wholesaler. His uncle was a motor bicycle wholesaler. So we certainly didn't feel we didn't suffer. In 1938, what happens in 1938? Anybody knows what happens? A very significant thing in world history happens. Anybody knows? Yes? Not yet. 1 year. You are 1 year. No. But almost, I appreciate it, and that will be the next question and you'll answer. No. Germany decides to not occupy, but annex Austria. They claim that it was not occupation. And the Austrians welcomed them. Most of them welcomed them. Now they will deny it, but they welcomed them. Because it's German language, they annexed Austria. It's called the Anschluss. Even in America, they call it the Anschluss, annexation of Austria. That affected very much things in Hungary. The Second World War didn't start yet, but already this had a big effect. New Jewish laws come out, anti-Jewish laws come out. Now it comes the nullus. You can guess what that is, even if you don't speak Latin, you don't learn Latin. That's no Jews could go to college anymore. No Jews. My cousins suffered terribly from that. They were that age. And also there were terrible taxations. My mother's family owned lands. They were constantly taxed, heavily taxed. My father, every few months, a little bureaucrat from the tax bureau would come out to examine his books. If he found one number was not correct, my father would have had to go to jail. I mean, at every Jewish business it happened to. It was not beneath my father to bribe the guy, but this miserable little bureaucrat wouldn't so much as accept a glass of water. The secretaries used to run to him, coffee, tea, chocolate, cigarette. No, he wouldn't accept a glass of water. He would sit there for a week or 2 weeks, examining the book several times a year, and go away. Never found anything wrong. And luckily my father, but he was a nervous wreck in those days. Any case, came 1939. And what happened in 1939? That's right. What day? What day? Okay, September 1st, 1939. Okay. Germany invades Poland, and that is what we count as the beginning of Second World War. Hungary joins the Germans, and the Hungarian men become soldiers fighting on the side of Hitler. What about the Jewish guys? Oh, they have to go also, except they don't get uniforms. This is very Hungarian, nowhere else, by the way, in Nazi-occupied countries, they had this particular system. The work service, it translates to work service. All Jewish men between 18 and 48 had to go into the work service. They didn't get uniform. They were in their own clothes. They didn't get boots. They were in their own shoes. They got no guns. They were digging ditches in Siberia or in middle Russia, near Stalingrad, where the fights. They were digging ditches in their own thin clothes for the Hungarian army. Hundreds or thousands of them froze to death, and if they didn't die from the weather or not from the Russian bullets, they died from the torture of the Hungarian soldiers. The very Hungarian soldiers they were digging the ditches for. They were doing the work for them. They tortured them to death. There is a movie, Sunshine. It was playing all over in the United States, and you can still get it on Netflix. Sunshine, and that has a scene in it. It is based on a real story, but much worse. Olympic gold medal winner Attila Pecsa died being tortured, like it's described there, except the movie was much milder. In any case. My father didn't have to go because he was much older. He was already in his 50s. I had old parents. I was a late child, and that was very lucky for me. So my father didn't have to go to the work service. But my uncle had to go. He was a doctor, and we were so lucky. We felt so lucky because he didn't go to the Russian front. Wasn't digging ditches for the army. He was sent as a doctor to a tuberculosis hospital because tuberculosis is dangerous, so it's good. That's exactly good for a Jewish doctor if it's a dangerous place. But it was wonderful. I mean, the tuberculosis hospital was up in the mountains, a beautiful place, and we felt so lucky about it. And we sent packages to him regularly, food and so on. And we also. For example, he asked for a warm shirt. Well, in Hungary you couldn't get warm materials those days. Everything went to the soldiers, there was nothing available. So I remember of my family, only thing they could get is some red flannel, and they were embarrassed to send it to him because somehow it was considered ridiculous for in those days for a man to wear a red flannel shirt, and so we were very embarrassed to send it to him. Other lucky thing was that my cousin, I had 15, we were 6, actually, we were 15 cousins. I was the youngest, way the youngest of all of them. And the next to me, a boy was 10 years older than I was. He was the only one who played with me. And we were also lucky because instead of going to the Russian front, he went to an ammunition factory very near in Budapest, just outside the outskirts of the city. And we felt very lucky about it. But things got slowly worse and worse and worse. The governor of Hungary decided around 1943, after the Germans had this tremendous defeat in Stalingrad and started to withdraw from Soviet Union and coming back, the governor of Hungary suddenly woke up and decided to change sides and send people to the Americans and the British and say, I want to join you. We want to leave Hitler and we want to join you. The Americans and the British were preparing for D-Day and couldn't have cared less about a stupid little country like Hungary changing sides at the last minute of the war. But however, the Germans learned the Germans learned about it, and in the last minute of the war, March 19, 1944, to this day every time as March 19, I of course know exactly what day it is. My friends and I, we call each other and remember what day it is. March 19, 1944, the Germans occupied Allied Hungary. That's when the Holocaust started for me. Until then, I was a protected child, and we couldn't anymore have Gentile servants. We had to have only Jewish servants, etc. But Jews could not employ Gentiles, and my father's business, suffered, and everything else. But that's when really everything changed. It started to change quicker in the countryside. Hungary was. Did I mention that Hitler said to? Yeah, I think. If I didn't, I quickly said that the reason the Hungarians joined Hitler in '39 is because he promised to give back all those territories they lost after the First World War. And he kept his promise. He did give back all those territories to Hungary. So now Hungary was again, just like before the peace treaty, the infamous Versailles peace treaty, it was just the same size. Most of the territories, 98% of the territories was returned by Hitler. So in all these territories, in this Hungarian area, suddenly they started to collect the Jews. They divided the country into 20 districts, and they started exactly with where my mother's village in northeast Hungary, and the Jews had to go into the nearest railroad station, into a ghetto, it was surrounded by fence, and very soon, March 19th they occupied. By May 13, my mother's family was already on the train to Auschwitz. When they arrived to Auschwitz, there were among them this famous, infamous Dr. Mengele, cruel doctor who became quite famous. And Dr. Mengele sent them, or his other assistants, other SS people, sent them directly to the gas chamber if they were under 16 years of age, or crippled, or babies, mothers with babies, immediately. So the only ones, they went to the left, that was a gas chamber. The only people who were spared temporarily from the gas chamber were people between over 16 and under 48. The old people also all went. My mother's entire family, all his brothers, sisters, they all directly went to the gas chamber. A couple of cousins, several of my cousins had little child. They went to the gas chamber, pregnant, went to the gas chamber immediately. A couple of them went, and eventually only one cousin survived. Okay. And by the way, we talked about the work service. All those cousins who went to the work service, none of them survived, by the way. And the work service, meaning digging ditches for the soldiers I was talking about. In Budapest, things went a little bit slower. We were the 20th district, and you can, I hope by now you ask yourself, so how is she here if everybody, I was 10 years old at that time, I was born in 1934, so in 1944 I was 10 years old. How come that I am here if everybody under 16 went to the gas chamber? When they came to Budapest after they cleared out 90 districts, at Budapest, they had to stop with the collection of the Jews. Why? Because of two brave Slovakian Jews, Rudolf Rebel and Alfred Wetzler, escaped from Auschwitz. They knew that, they already knew that they are expecting the Hungarian Jews there, and they wrote what is called and available, and you can read it, the Auschwitz Report. To this day it's called the Auschwitz Report. And they wanted to warn the Hungarian Jews about that there will be an occupation. They heard it from the SS while working for them. They listened and they knew that the Germans planned to occupy Hungary. They thought if they would come, they could escape. Nobody ever escaped successfully from Auschwitz yet. If they could warn the Hungarian Jews that there is not enough SS and not enough guns, and they only rebelled and resisted, they had a chance to not to be deported. They wanted to warn the Hungarian Jews. They escaped, the first people who ever successfully escaped. They warned the Hungarian Jewish leaders, who didn't believe them. They wrote what is to this day known, the Auschwitz Report, easily available. And the Auschwitz Report by the Hungarian Jews didn't listen and didn't rebel as perhaps they should have. The report got to Roosevelt, President Roosevelt, the British King George VI, the King of Sweden, and to the Pope. All four of them threatened the governor of Hungary that unless he stops the deportation, because the deportation was done by the Hungarians, and not by the Germans. They were supervising it, but physically it was done by Hungarians. Then they were going to put him on trial. The war was, everybody knew the war was over. This is 1944, just a couple of months before D-Day. The governor did stop it because of this Auschwitz report, and I had the fantastic, rare opportunity in 1999 in Prague. I met Mr. Wrobel by accident, on not quite accidentally, but we were in the same meeting, and I could thank him for my life. I would not be here today if he didn't escape from Auschwitz and write the report. It's a fantastic escape. It's well worth reading it. I at least had the opportunity to thank him. So the deportation in Budapest stopped. The systematic deportation, they still took thousands of people away, and mostly women, because the men who were strong, they were all out on the Russian front digging ditches. There were women, a lot of people died still after the deportation stopped, even in Budapest. My parents decided I have to go into hiding. When they sent me away to a Christian family, hiding, I knew that means they think they're going to die. I knew that that they wouldn't send me away if they thought they were going to survive the war. So I was very, very worried. In end of April, again, March 19th, they occupied, we put on yellow stars on all our clothes. We had to, after April 5, we had to wear yellow stars. Another thing that happened is that Jews had to move into yellow star houses. How did they decide which is a yellow star house? By counting the number of Jews in each house. If it was more than 50%, they put a yellow star outside of the house, and the Jews could stay. If the Christians, of course, could stay if they wanted to live as Jews. The houses that didn't have 50% Jews, the Jews had to leave. We were lucky again. I just one luck after another. We were lucky again because our house was more than 50% Jewish. We felt very safe. Suddenly one night, it was a beautiful house. We lived next to the parliament, overlooking the Danube. One night, a Jewish family disappeared. We never found out what happened to them. We can guess, but never found out they disappeared. And the German general and his staff moved into their apartment. And they said, sorry, we are not going to live I'm a German general, I'm not going to live in a yellow star house. So out the Jews go. So even though our house legally would have been a yellow star house, we had to leave suddenly. And we were thrown out. By that time, my two aunts lived with us, the one whose husband was in the tuberculosis hospital, and the other aunt whose son was in the ammunition factory, my cousin. And so they were just preparing to move over to another house that was a yellow star house in a crowded little apartment, much smaller than ours, when I was taken away by this Christian family. They were very nice to me. They were kind to me. And my downfall was actually that the neighbors were very kind also. My story probably was a stupid story, but seemed logical at that time. I was supposed to be a twice orphaned girl, and even my adopting parents died. And so the neighbors and this couple who adopted me, they had no children. So the neighbors asked them, oh, you're going to adopt her. She's a very nice little girl. You're going to adopt her. And they said, no, we are not. Oh, okay, if you don't adopt her, we want to adopt her. So my bad luck was that everybody wanted to adopt me. This couple got scared. They chickened out, and they brought me back to my parents. They kept all my money, all my clothes, everything, all the money. My father gave them a lot of money because they expected not to live not to stay alive. They kept all that, but they returned me to my parents. I was very happy. By now, we lived in a Yellow Star house. We lived in a park. It was nice before we lived on the shore of the Danube. And luckily, this Yellow Star house was on a big park. And except that no Jews were allowed into the park. That was the only thing. It was a very nice park, but you could just look at it from the window. So, and there was a sidewalk. We were allowed on the sidewalk, but we were not allowed to enter the park. So how did we play? We would play, hopscotch by jumping, and then we would step over 1 second and just into the park, just to break the law, just to hold the way, And if our parents saw us, they would kill us. But it wasn't that a German was going to come by and see us, or a Hungarian Nazi was coming by. It is our neighbors, it is our non-Jewish neighbors who would report us, and they constantly would yell us. My own sons, I have 2 boys, by now they are adults and they have their own children. My boys noticed it, that when I am in Budapest, in this neighborhood, in front of certain houses, I go on the sidewalk, and then in front of certain houses, I go to the side of the street, at the edge of the sidewalk. And we realized that those were the non-Yellow Star houses. And when I would go in front of those houses, the tenants would yell, scream from the gate, "You Jew, get away from here! Don't come near here! Don't come near here!" To this day, I go to the side of the wall, side of the sidewalk, edge of the sidewalk. So that was a fact. Still, and also we had strict hours from 10 to 12. We were allowed to go to the street. By that time, again, Hungary is in war. There is hardly food even for the Christians. You can imagine at 10 o'clock when you start going to the store, there was no food left for the Jews. So 10 to 12 they allowed us out, and then 2 to 5 again. No other time. The Jews have to be always inside. So the children went to the courtyard. It was summer. Apartments were crowded. We would go into the courtyard. Again, we were not allowed to from other courtyards. Were separated by fences. And our friends were on both sides, of the fence. We were not allowed to throw a ball across because that was forbidden. Not a piece of paper, not a pencil, nothing. Because if Christian neighbors saw it, they could report us, and they did report us, and we would get into big trouble. But in any case, summertime around June 1944, D-Day, already Europe is getting freed, but we are in the deepest trouble still, and my mother and 2 aunts decided that we can get converted. We can get converted if we go to a class all summer long, several months, 3 times a week. We learn the catechism, we get a letter, a baptism letter. If we have a baptism letter, we are Christians, and we will not be prosecuted. My father said, do it without me, leave me out. I was born a Jew, I will die as a Jew. But my 2 aunts, my mother and I was not asked, but anyways, we went along, and what we did, since 12 to 2, the Jews couldn't go out anyhow. This Catholic Church allowed us at 12 o'clock, 12 to 2, they had these catechism lessons. And we were a captive audience, certainly, but so we learned the catechism for 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. and we learned it, and we were preparing, and we had to take an exam. We were studying for the exam, and we passed it. By end of August, you know, we passed the exam, and we were ready for the baptism. Well, the baptism day, they were going to announce. So we were waiting, and they finally announced the day of the baptism. It was Yom Kippur Day. How many people know what Yom Kippur is? Okay, so a few people, yes. It is a single highest holiday in the Jewish religion. Single highest holiday. There is no comparison. The Catholic Church decided that, I don't know whether to test, to put it on Yom Kippur Day. Let me open this. I know what you are saying. I know what you are saying to yourself, and you are absolutely right. You are saying, what difference does it make if you leave your religion? If you leave your religion and go into another religion, if you do it sincerely, as you should, and honestly, what difference does it make that the baptism day is on the highest holiday of the religion you are leaving anyhow? What difference does it make? True? You are absolutely right. If we would have done it honestly and sincerely, but we didn't. We just wanted to save our soil hides. That's all. We did not mean to really convert. So my mother and my two aunts, I don't know about other people in that class, but my mother and my two aunts, again I was not asked, said, forget it, we will not convert on Yom Kippur Day, and they never got converted. In the meantime, another interesting thing happened, and it sounds to you like a controversy. And the Holocaust is full of, if you read about it or study, it's full of controversies like this, because there is no logic. When you try to keep, you succeed. When you kill 6 million people, there is no logic to that either. So the Holocaust itself is full of very, very illogical things. My cousin, my adored cousin, Stephen is his English name, so I call him Stephen. Stephen was in this ammunition factory. He is told, it's crazy, it's told that if he finds a guard, a gendarme, gendarmes were guarding them, if he finds a gendarme who, for money of course, is willing to take him home to visit his mother, he can go and visit his mother whenever he wants. Here's a boy who is already sentenced to extinction, basically. And now he can visit his mother whenever he pleases. And we gave him the money, so he had the money to do. So sure enough, my cousin was a smart boy. He looks around, picks the fattest gendarme, Mr. Todd. I swear I'm not making it up. His name was Mr. Todd, I still remember it. And he picks Mr. Todd, and Mr. he agrees and brings him home. My mother and my two aunts take a look at Mr. Todd, immediately knew what to do with him. They take him to the kitchen and start feeding him. Mr. Todd was a very, very fat man. Stephen chose the fattest gendarme. They start feeding him. Of course, Mr. Todd wanted to bring Stephen home every day if possible, you know. No wonder we lost the war, he never made any ammunition for sure. And so he kept bringing him home. And sometimes he would even bring him at the evening, leave him overnight, because that way he got supper and he got breakfast. In the meantime, my parents, who had nothing, truly all through this period, they had only, they thought they will die, but they didn't even know about the concentration camps. They didn't really know what happened to my mother's family, really. We guessed, but we didn't know the facts at all. We didn't know about Auschwitz. But they knew they will not survive. They didn't expect to survive. They just wanted to save the life of their 10-year-old little girl, me. So now they heard that there is a convent that has Jewish children. All the convents, by the way, in Budapest were full of Jewish children, all of them. The convent I went to had 110 Jewish children. So they took me there on October 12th, 1944, October 12th. And that was a Thursday. And 3 days later, they already came, brought me some food because they were starving, some cookies, etc. And they said, we can take you home. The war is over. It's all over. The governor of Hungary on the radio, October 15, announced that he's leaving the Germans, really leaving, and he is no longer with the Germans, so there is no more anti-Semitic laws, and we can take you home. And I said, no, I don't want to go home. This is like boarding school. I'm having fun. I was a little child, always had to sleep alone in my room. I thought it was boring. I said, here I have 30 girls to talk to every evening after they turn off the lights. I like it here. And they said, okay, we'll come back. So, just get your things together because in a couple of days we come back for you. But have fun until then. They went home. And indeed, the governor of Hungary announced on the radio that morning had his proclamation that he's leaving the Germans, and my parents, they just moved into that house. They already knew everybody. They had a party. They invited everybody to their apartment. They took all these, they already had these protection papers from the Swedish embassy. All the neutral countries gave protection papers. And they had it from the Swiss, they had it from the Swedish. They made hats out of them, they folded it, put it on their head. They were dancing and drinking and celebrating that the war is over and the governor of Hungary is not joining his allies and so on. Little did they know that very day, October 15, and it's another day, March 19 and October 15 that I never forget, the Hungarian Nazis took over the power. The governor they put on house arrest, they sent one son, they already killed, but another son was sent to Mauthausen concentration camp. And the Hungarian Nazis took over the country. That is when the real terror started. That is when the real terror started for us. The Germans were already not, they didn't have the trains. The trains were used to transport the troops from the Russian front. Germans were not interested anymore. PBS had a very good show about this, that already in September Himmler called in the SS leaders from Hungary and told them, forget about the Jews, forget about doing anything against killing the Jews, instead get signatures because you will be put on trial, we all go on trial, get signatures to save your rights. So already in September, the Germans, Himmler knew Hitler, Adolf Hitler didn't know it until he killed himself in the bunkers, but the rest of the SS realized it. And so the Germans already were not killing the Jews of Budapest. The Hungarian Nazis, on the other hand, were not going to get stuck with thousands of Jews still. So they started to take down house by house, diligently, day and night, working even through the Christmas holidays, took every house down to the shore of the Danube. They made the Jews to get off their clothes, to be naked, tied 3 Jews together, 3 people, no matter what age, tied them together, and with 1 bullet they shot 1 person, and the other 2 just drowned alongside with the one who was. We lost many friends that way. 18,000 Jews were killed in the last weeks of the war. 18,000 Jews. There is a memorial on the shore of the Danube. Bronze shoes, just bronze shoes standing there on the shore of the Danube. Well, my parents were very happy. They left me in the cloister, in the convent. In the convent, well, things were, we got fed. The nuns were very kind to us, but they were working on converting us. And so I knew the catechism already by heart, but they were still pushing it and so on. And eventually, well, also, you know, they shared every food with us. It wasn't much, they didn't have much, but we were fed. No, we were always hungry, but we were fed. Windows broke from the bombing. We slept without windows on a very cold winter. My feet got frozen, hands and feet. To this day, I have no normal circulation in my toes. Winter and summer, I sleep with electric blankets because I have no circulation. It was badly bloody, you know. It was frozen so badly that it opened up all my toes. So it was circumstances. In the last minute they did baptize me, and I regret that very much. But I went into the baptism obediently, and only later, years later, did I sober up and you know, left the religion, Catholic religion. I'm not proud of myself, but then again, out of 110 children, only 1 boy resisted. The rest of us all went into this baptism willingly. And, you know, again, okay, so they tried to save our life. Fine. But what did I get for the baptism? I got a small little card. I have it to this day. I can show you a small little name card. It's written on it. Maria Schweitzer was baptized on December 11, 1944, and the signature of the head sister of the nuns, Mother Superior. Well, if a 10-year-old girl walks around on the street and doesn't have a baptism letter, that's normal. But if I show that stupid little card to anybody, of course they know I'm a Jewish girl. Of course. So why on earth they couldn't forge baptism letters and give it to us, saying, you know, that in 1934 I was baptized, that when I was born. That would have helped perhaps, but this name card didn't. So I got baptized really for nothing. And I'm a little bit bitter. I'm quite bitter about it. I'm embarrassed that I went along. I'm embarrassed that I was religious for a few years, etc. What stopped it is that as a priest, one of the priests, we learned religion in the school, and he had an anti-Semitic. He picked 5 of us who were all converted Jews, embarrassed us and humiliated us terribly. That finally sobered me up and I left the religion. In the meantime, my cousin Stephen was brought home by Mr. Todt and left at home. The Hungarian Nazis came, searched through the house, took my cousin with them, took them to a concentration camp near Hamburg, Germany, and he died there of starvation. His body was burned along with hundreds of other bodies. My beautiful, wonderful 20-year-old cousin died of starvation. My uncle, who went to the tuberculotic sanatorium as a doctor. By the way, when he went as a doctor, he thought it was so safe that he smuggled in another uncle of mine who was also a doctor, but he smuggled him in as a patient, as a tuberculotic patient. So both of my uncles were in this tuberculotic hospital. As the Nazis emptied it out, the cousin who was the uncle who was a patient was sent to Auschwitz, eventually Dachau, and I disappeared in Dachau. And my uncle, my beloved uncle, Joseph was his name in English, he was with 216 doctors they collected. This is a perversity. You know, the Holocaust is full of perverse things. I find it very perverse. They collected 216 doctors and made them, on October 16th, they made them to dig a long ditch, shot all 216 of them into the ditch. Their gravestones now in a Jewish cemetery, it reads like a medical convention, Dr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so. And after the war, my aunt was asked to come and recognize the body. You know, they were skeletons. I mean, I don't know how soon after the war they got around to dig out this ditch. And my